What's going on, y'all? 75 Junction, it's your boy Sherm. I'm here with a very special guest today. Today we have a mayoral candidate, Phillip Jones, in the building. How are you feeling today, man?
Brother, I feel good, man. Thanks you for the time, bro. I'm ready just to talk to your people.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity. I know you're a busy man, busy schedule, so we'll get right into it. So for those who don't know, you can just explain who you are and what you do.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it. So, hey, everyone. My name is Phillip Jones. I am running for mayor of Newport News. I'm really excited. The city has a lot of energy, a lot of passion that's going on. Usually that's only reserved for Southside, but I'm telling you, good things are happening in Newport News.
Okay, absolutely. And speaking of good things happening in Newport News, I see downtown Newport News seems to be getting a lot of love and attention lately, getting built up a lot and stuff. I see some luxury apartments are getting built down there too. So can you kind of give a little bit of background to that, like as far as what's happening with the downtown area?
Exactly. So, as we all know, Newport News is sort of a banana-shaped city. You see a lot of money and investment going into the center part of the city. And historically, due to redlining and some other things, downtown has been sort of forgotten about. And so what you see now is you see a lot of banks, especially New York, Chicago banks, are starting to invest heavily in the area, which is good. I mean, you need money to drive things, to drive chains. I think it's important to understand that as people spend a lot of money downtown, how can we ensure that Black people are not, number one, displaced, and number two, have a seat at the table? Representation will always be everything.
Right. Yeah, so I always thought about that, like as far as like, okay, they're building up downtown, but there's also a lot of people that live downtown that are not well off financially. So in building up downtown, you're raising the cost of living and you're also effectively forcing the people that are out. So yeah, they're obviously gonna have to be rehomed or resheltered, or they're gonna have to establish new housing developments for Section 8, things of that matter. So. Yeah, that's definitely important to think about as well. So obviously, there's some negative that comes with the positive, but
Of course.
nonetheless, we progress forward and move on. So, being a mayor or mayoral candidate, excuse me, what all goes into that? Like, how did you get involved in that? Like, what was the background and the drive for that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a secret. I actually hate politics. I'm a businessman. That's sort of my background. I'm a military guy, so Marine Corps, businessman. Those are the things that I like to focus on. But then I begin to realize that as you look at certain power structures in Hampton Roads, Newport News, the nation writ large, you understand that there's only really 4 or 5 levers that you have to affect change. And I think one of the biggest levers to affect change is through the political field. And so I came back to Newport News about 3 years ago, and I said, you know what? Newport News has been an asset-strong city, but we are a strategy and we are a leadership-poor city. And I said, I think I can fix that. I think it goes back to that whole quote of like, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? I got love for the 757. I got love for the Peninsula. I got love for Newport News. I have certain skill sets. Why can't I bring that to my community instead of going and making money in DC or New York?
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to voting for mayor and things like that, how do people? Is it the same process like when you go to vote for a president or you go to vote for a congressman? Like, how does that process work?
Exactly. So it's almost the exact same process when it comes to before you're allowed to have your name on the ballot. You have to collect 150 signatures. You have to raise a little money to get your name out there. But I tell everyone this: a lot of individuals don't want to vote, and I can understand that because they say national politics don't really affect my life. It doesn't matter who the president is, who the senator is. I'll tell you what, local elections, I think every election matters, but I think local elections matter the most. What your planning commission, what your school board, what your city council, what your mayor does has a day-to-day impact on your life, on your schools, on your road. Can I play basketball at the community center? Well, it's 9 p.m., so the lights are going to be off. Like, your local elected officials they play a great deal of influence in your life.
Okay, I got you. So that makes sense. So there's a lot of facets when it comes to politics, whether they're at a local level, a regional level, a national level. There's obviously layers of politics and layers of politics.
Yeah.
I actually did an interview with David, and he was running for a delegate for Newport News. So I know, like, as a mayor, like, how do you work with delegates? Like, do delegates fall? Like, what's the hierarchy structure? I guess is like mayor, like delegates, and so on and so forth. Like, how does that look?
Yeah, so I'll start macro to micro. So I think mayor really focuses on codes and compliance. They focus on affordable housing. They focus on things that they can affect through their tax base locally. So how much do you, if you own this house, how much do you pay for your insurance or your property tax? how much are you paying for schools or the bus routes. That's sort of the mayor. Delegates, when they come into play, is Richmond. All that, all that's state money. So they decide the laws. They make laws. As mayor, I don't make any laws. It's more of an executive branch for the city.
Okay.
And then you get the national level. So national level, they'll make all the money. They'll send the money to the state. The state will cut it up and send it to the localities. And then as mayor, I work with my colleagues on city council with the city manager to say, okay, of this, I'll make up a number, $100 million. 20 is going to schools. 20 is going to develop downtown. I basically cut up the pie and make sure that it's allocated in the appropriate manner.
Okay, got you. Now, and as far as allocation is concerned, is it based off of a necessity? Like, I'm assuming you have statistics like say, okay, we have X amount of reports for, damaged roads. So I'm going to allocate this amount to roads to repair that because there should be an adequate amount. And we have, a shortage of, I don't know, supplies for teachers at this school. So we'll allocate money towards that. Is that kind of how it works out?
Exactly how it works out. The one caveat is just like with the federal government, we always have more needs than money. Right.
Yeah.
I wish I could just print money, but that's not how it works, right?
Right.
We all know, supply and demand. That's not how it works. And so I think Newport News, as well as other cities, they have a lot of things they would need to invest in. They need to invest in their roads, their infrastructure, their police force, maybe the biggest one, the education.
Yeah.
Like all of these things need to happen. But then the other side of that coin is how do you increase your city's revenue or your tax base? And that's getting more people who have high paying jobs to move into your city. Then it's sort of a virtuous circle. So you're trying to, yes, I need to invest in these 4 things, but I need the money to pay for it. And it's always going to be uneven. And so you kind of, rob Peter to pay Paul. And I think Newport News has done a good job of investing in central Newport News. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Uptown, a little bit of urban decay going on down there.
It used to be good uptown.
Exactly. But what you see happening is people are basically moving toward the center of Newport News, or they're going to Williamsburg. So it's a gap in the north part of the city.
Yeah.
And then downtown, due to redlining and other kind of racial policies, they just lump together black people and say you can only live here. And so there are ways that we have policies to kind of change that. So we invest more. We talk about a black bank. There's things that we can do to ensure that people aren't just stuck in only one part of the town. We're able to have, access, because we have so many good things in the city.
Yeah.
If you only know one part, then you're kind of stuck there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you brought up and mentioned redlining because a lot of people actually a lot of people haven't even heard of redlining.
Yeah.
But the people that have heard about it assume that it's a antiquated policy, but it's something that still happens to this day, and people don't know that.
100%. I mean, if you want to talk about Newport News, the Southeast community is next to a coal terminal. They were a marginalized community who didn't have the political power to organize years ago, was essentially put down next to a coal pier. I mean, these are things that are happening in our community. And yes, redlining itself may not be as big as a thing if it was, but it doesn't matter because if you redline 50 years ago, the patterns remain the same.
Correct.
If you look at Chicago or Detroit or New York or Newport News, the red line districts are about the same, honestly.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that is still going on that definitely needs to change.
Yeah.
So the fact that somebody's, running for mayor and is, bringing that to light, that has my vote at least. So rest assured that I will definitely be voting for that. And then for those who are listening, no, for sure. And then for those who are listening, when and where can they vote?
Yes. So in Virginia, we vote November 8th, and that is going to be top of the ticket's going to be the congressional race. The second one is going to be the mayor's race. So you'll see my name right there on the ballot. You can register to vote if you just go online. I think it's Virginia Department of Elections is the way you can register to vote, or you can go downtown to City Hall and do that as well. Early voting, I believe, starts September 23rd.
Okay.
So at any time you can go down there, or you can fill out an absentee ballot if you're military or etc. But there's like 5 or 6 ways to vote. But I tell everyone, make sure that you vote. I can remember there was a few years ago. I didn't vote for something. I was military. I was moving around, but I've always kind of been registered to vote down here.
Right.
And my grandmother called, and she's 93, 94 right now. So she saw some stuff growing up. They didn't allow her vote. They made her do a literacy test. The whole sort of racial thing that happened in the Deep South.
Right.
And she said, did you vote? And I said, I've been busy. And she said, people marched, people died for your right to vote. You will never again not vote. And she almost made me go get like the virtual Switch. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like an older black woman. She doesn't play, but voting is important. I know that it takes a lot of you gotta stand in line. But if you actually say, hey, I'm going to vote in this election, and you do it 2 weeks in advance, takes 10 minutes in and out, and that is your way that, hey, I want to change my city, I want to change this. That is the biggest way you can do that.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that oh, my vote doesn't matter. It's not third. Mostly with the the presidential elections and stuff like that, because they're like, oh, I'm just voting for not a representative. What are they called?
The U.S. House of Representatives, or
no? So like when you vote, right? And
you're voting for like the electoral college.
Electoral college. Yeah. So they're just saying like, I'm voting for electoral college to determine whether or not they want to go the majority vote for it. So a lot of people have that stigma, but I definitely feel like in the city it's more important because you have more control in the city that you physically live in. Because obviously you have federal laws that you have to abide by and federal things that affect you. However, your local things that affect you, your local cost of living, or not cost of living, but your local, quality of life can be determined and altered based off who you have in office. So I'm glad that you brought that to everybody's attention, because it's definitely important.
100%. And I think people always say like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Like, okay, we can argue about whether your one vote matters. You live in a blue state or red state. Okay, cool. I understand that. I'm not saying to just vote and then like, that's it. That's all I'm doing, right? Voting is just one part. It's a big part, but it's only one part of being part of your community.
Right.
It's how do you give back to the Boys and Girls Club? It's do you volunteer? Do you whatever your gift and your talent is, do you help your community? Like that is also a part of being a good citizen and being a good neighbor. It's ensuring, like, is your trash picked up? Do you see an old lady? Do you help her? Like these are very basic things. Voting is just one part of it. It's a big part, but can you incorporate all of that that's what makes strong communities?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Now, we're talking about, the military and stuff like that. Let's talk about your military background a little bit. So can you just explain to people, one, what branch you served in, and two, what effect the military services had on you as an individual?
Yeah, so I'll start with that question first. So the reason we moved to Newport News, to Hampton Roads, was because of my parents. They were both Air Force pilots. So they both went to the Air Force Academy, met in college, class of 1982. My dad was a fighter pilot, F-15, and my mom was a navigator for the KC-135. So, military service has always been kind of a big part of us. My grandparents, great-grandparents, you go all the way back, everyone is kind of served, because I think for a lot of African Americans, that is just sort of a shortcut to the middle class. The GI Bill,
right?
You get good money. It's pretty good for a lot of people. And so they did that. A big day in my life, though, was when... the Twin Towers were hit on September 11th. I can remember exactly where I was. I went to school over in Hampton. I was in the 6th grade. Big turning point in my life. I think my dad was either base commander or like OPSO at Langley Air Force Base, and they basically came and said, "Hey, man, like the country's going to be at war. We need you to grow up. We're going to be gone for a few weeks. Your grandmother is coming to take care of you." And so, that was a big day for me. And then, like any good son, I wanted to do the opposite of my parents. So instead of the Air Force, I went to the Naval Academy up in Annapolis, Maryland, and then after that, joined the Marine Corps.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
So why Marines? Was it just like hoorah, like you want to go get it? Or?
Man, yeah. I mean, I always say like Marine Corps is kind of tip of the spear, and
absolutely.
When I went to the academy, you get to pick, right? You can go Navy, you can go Marine Corps, and it's kind of subdivided in different, do you want to be a pilot? Do you want to be admin? Do you want to be communications? And so I knew from very early on that I wanted to be a Marine. I have older mentors who are 85, 90, and they still sign every letter with Semper Fi, which means always faithful. Like the Marine Corps is essentially a cult, right? It's just like you kind of clicked up, right?
Yeah.
And so I love the Marine Corps, and so I decided that I wanted to be tip of the spear. So I did infantry, and I did it because the infantry is not hard. Anyone can do it. My guys aren't in that good of shape. They're not the smartest. They're not the strongest. They're not the fastest, but they are the willing, right? You're just out there in the rain. Infantry has the most casualties when during wartime. So like they get promoted the slowest. They get paid probably less, you could say. And they do the brunt of their work. And that's why I want to be around guys like that. And so it was the honor of my life was to lead those Marines.
Okay. Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. And now, so when you went into the Marines, you went in as a commissioned officer, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the college background. So you went to Harvard, correct?
So I went to Harvard for business school.
Okay.
For undergrad, I went to the Naval Academy. So it's like a commissioning source. So Went to the Naval Academy. I graduated in 2012, and I commissioned as a second lieutenant. And so, as a second lieutenant, in the Army and the Navy, the Army and the Marine Corps, you're a platoon commander. So, second lieutenant, you're in charge of about 45 guys, and that's your platoon. So I did that for about 18 months. Went to my first deployment, Southeast Asia, for a United Nations mission. So we were in like Mongolia, South Korea, the Philippines, that sort of vibe.
Okay.
Came back, got promoted to first lieutenant, and they made me the company executive officer. So I was second in command of about 200 Marines, and that was definitely interesting. I look young. I'm 24 and I'm in charge of 200 people. Like that's that's a burden.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I can imagine, at least in the Air Force, this is how it is. You have the second lieutenant. They come in and they're like, "Oh, you just, fresh out of college. You don't know nothing. You can't tell me nothing." Right. Yeah. So like, was it the same? Like, kind of okay.
100%. Like, so there was I joined my unit. Let's see. So you do about a year training. So now it's 2013. I joined my unit in the fall of 2013. And there was a day where I knew that I earned their respect. So people always say the lieutenant or the LT or and then something happened. We did a training exercise. Long story short, I got hurt really bad. I broke all my fingers on my right hand.
Wow.
And I denied medevac. This is a training exercise. I denied the medevac and said, let me finish the mission with my boys. They flew me out to save my hand. And then I came back to the field. And they started saying, that's my lieutenant. It went from the lieutenant to my lieutenant overnight. And I was like, oh, like it became ownership. And I knew that I had definitely won them over where, there's about 4 officers in a company, if you will. And my captain said, hey, all the lieutenants, I need you guys to go to a meeting on base and then come back. While we were in that meeting, horrible thunderstorm came. And we're like, oh my goodness, like my bag, all my gear is going to be in the middle of this field underwater. I come back and there's 4 of us. And 2 of us, essentially, our Marines had gotten our packs. They had brought them to theirs and covered it with a tarp.
Oh, wow.
And 2 of the 2 lieutenants that no one liked, their bags underwater in the middle of the field, just by themselves. And I was like, because I mean, like your guys don't have, like they're not obligated to carry your 100-pound pack with them.
Right.
Boom. My pack was dry. It was warm. And I was like, it actually kind of got me emotional because I was like, I'm one of them now.
Yeah, exactly. You earn their respect and they acknowledge you as their leader.
Exactly.
So do you plan to have a similar moment like that when it comes to the mayor position? Like you want to have like obviously you're the new mayor on the block, so people are gonna be like, oh, okay, who's this guy? Who's he trying to change stuff around here? And then once they actually see how genuine you are about it and how much you mean, you want to add change to the community. Yeah. I think that they'll kind of come around and have that same moment where it's like, no, that's my mayor, not the mayor.
Exactly. And I think it comes down to, I call it servant leadership. That's what we call it in the Marine Corps. But there was a day that I decided to go Marine Corps instead of Navy. And so in the Navy, the higher, maybe for the Air Force as well, the higher you get. So for instance, in the Navy, all the officers eat together and they have individuals that are enlisted will be like, hey, sir, how do you want your eggs? And it didn't sit right to me that like, why should someone who's older than me, why should someone, I can go get my own eggs. I don't need you to serve me eggs. So that's how the Navy was set up. The higher rank you are, people who are lower ranked, they serve you. Marine Corps is different. Marine Corps, they say leaders eat last. So if there's 100 of us and we got 60 dinners, we go lowest rank to highest rank. And guess what? The burden of command says that like the highest rank doesn't eat because it's not about you. It's about your Marines. So that same mentality is the same mentality I had when I left the Marine Corps, when I went to Harvard for business school, when I at my civilian job as a consultant, and even now running for mayor with the team is I'm the first one at work. I'll be the last one to leave, and leaders eat last.
Okay,
that's it. Full stop.
Yeah, that was our motto in basic. First one in, last one out.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome, man. Yeah. So you not only want to be leading from the front, but you also want to be a leader that's going to lead by example as well.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
What's that? When I was pledging Omega, they always said I would rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. Talk is cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of politicians, I'm not saying Newport, I'm saying across the country.
Yeah.
A lot of people are all talk, and when you actually get down to like someone who's the doer of deeds, they don't have it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not me.
No, I got you 100%, man.
Yeah.
So, being in the political sphere, man,
Yeah.
have they given you like a speech course, like a politically correct course? Like, have you had to do anything like that as far as learning how to talk and things like that?
So not really. When I was a little kid, I had a really bad speech impediment, and so with their way they told me to get over it was like essentially go on YouTube and just listen to famous people and how they talk and give their speeches. So it could be Malcolm X, it could be Churchill, it could be JFK. Copy their cadence and their pitch, and that is the way that you can speak. And so that's how I've always communicated. Personally, though, I tell everyone this: politics is a sort of combination of Game of Thrones, combination of Machiavelli, and combination of Clausewitz, who wrote on war and on basically like military tactics. At the end of the day, politics, just like business, is 2 or 3 opponents, and whoever has the strongest will carry the day 90% of the time. It's just 2 wills that are clashing together. In my race, I have four wills that are clashing together.
Yeah.
But it's just combining like what is the brand? What is the strategy? Who are the voters? How do we connect to them? Is it podcasts? Is it going to the Jewish synagogue? Do I go to the mosque? Do I go to the Black AME church? How do I communicate? What is the brand? And then force of will.
Right.
Force of will always carry the day.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, that's powerful. Now, regretfully, I haven't been able to look into the other candidates that you were running against. But can you tell me what separates you and what differentiates you from your other candidates and what you, as mayor, basically aspire to accomplish?
Yeah, of course. And so I tell everyone this. This is not an original thought. I heard this from the mayor of Atlanta. He gave this in a speech, and he said, "My opponents are not the people on the stage. Everyone here is like, everyone has pros and cons, right?" He said, "My opponents," and so I'll say my opponents are hopelessness and homelessness and, why are there no houses and like the fear and the crime. Those are my opponents. Everyone else just has a different way of how they're going to change the city, but those are my true opponents. And so what separates me is that Newport News is at a crossroads. Everyone understands that. People feel the energy, but it's like, where are we going? People can feel that. And so I think that this period of time requires a young, battle-proven leader who has innovative ideas that can boldly carry our city and our region into the future.
Okay.
That's it. And I tell everyone these 3 things is like, number 1, through the Marine Corps, I've been tested in multiple ways on probably 3 or 4 different continents. Number 2 is my parents always told me, that sort of servant leadership where it's not about you, it's bigger than you.
Right.
So I just want to come back to my city. And the third thing is, people forget this city has like a $450 million budget. It's the corporation of Newport News that requires a business mind and to say, hey, like, can I get your money right? That's it. At the end of the day is, how can I balance the budget?
Yeah.
Can I get more money into the city? And am I young enough to be able to draw both young and old audience? I think that is uniquely qualified to be me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's where you have a leg up on them as well, because you are younger and you're going to act as a beacon for other young people to say, okay, let me see what the city elections are about. Let me see what the politics are about, because a lot of people aren't interested in politics. They just don't care. And this is why I kind of give credit to Trump. Not a huge fan of him. However, because of the polarizing nature of him being in office, a lot of people that didn't care about politics now care about politics. The people that didn't care about him or didn't pay attention to him, now they're doing those things. So silver lining, I guess. But when it comes to being mayor, what all is what's the end game? Like, so are you gonna be like mayor? Because I think the existing mayor has been a mayor for
12 years.
Yeah. Okay. So they've got time in the game, and mayor is not a position where you have like term limits, correct?
No. So there are no term limits, but every term is 4 years.
Okay.
And so I don't know what the future's gonna hold. I don't have like this master plan where I'm in 2045.
I got you.
But I do know some things that we need to address as a city. Number 1 is our education. We need to ensure that our schools have the money and the resources to fully fund our school and ensure that our kids are well prepared for like a sort of global economy and a global workforce. That's number 1. Number 2 is we have a perception of high crime, and we have some things that we need to fix from a public safety sort of lens. Yes, I think everyone will talk about that, but I think people are forgetting that mental health is probably at least a third of sort of that public safety issue. So is that a homeless shelters? Can we ensure that we fully fund our care, mental health sort of program? Because when you call 911, that should be for the police to come. I would say probably a third, I don't know, maybe a quarter of those calls are mental health specialists can be called and not the police. And the third thing, which is perhaps my favorite, is that we need investments in education, public safety, affordable housing. We all understand that. That requires money. That requires a tax base. That requires a business mind. So it's like, yes, we have these three investments we need to make. Let me get our money right. Let me increase the tax base. Let me have the cash on hand to invest in the things that we need to invest in. Number one being our kids, and kids are going to be the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, kids are the future. And I feel like the education is overlooked because, teachers are severely underpaid.
Exactly.
Especially for what they have to deal with as teachers. I mean, we grew up, in high school, middle school. We've seen how kids act around teachers and stuff like that. So it's a very high stress job, and they don't get compensated anywhere near enough for ensuring the future of our society.
Exactly.
And the members that we're raising. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, the teachers ultimately do raise the youth, because your kids, they're there for what, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So there is a level of parenting there that the teachers also have to do. Now, I had some questions from some of my followers.
Let's do it.
And I asked them, what questions they would have for mayor. However, like I told you prior to, I don't think they 100% understand what a mayor is. But this is a good one. So my friend Brian, he says, what are your plans to support local business owners?
Yeah. So Brian, I would say thanks for the question. And so it's a sort of 2 or 3 part question where, we have a lot of big companies here. We have the shipyard, we have Canon, and we have Ferguson. They provide a large part of the tax base. Got it. Check. The real question is, we talk about small businesses, I'm guessing. So you have to ensure that they have number one, access to capital. So that's bank loans, that's CDFIs. I think especially for the Black community, we don't have access to capital. So you need capital to grow. Boom. Number 2 is, if you're trying to grow your business, you're going to need a workforce, right? You need a workforce that lives in the city. People are not going to move to a city if the schools are not accredited and if it's a high crime rate or the perception of a high crime rate. So it's sort of take care of the external things, and then internally we can fund you. We can ensure that we make it easy for you to get a license, because small business will always be the backbone of the American economy. And that is the most important thing to me and the city is, yes, we have massive companies, but the thing that gives you, like, I'll call it, the juice, the flavor, the culture of your city will always be the small businesses.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Next question.
Time for like 2 questions. Is that fine?
Yeah.
2? Okay, perfect. All right. So next, my friend asked, I forgot his name for whatever reason, but his last name is Ricka.
Yeah.
But he said, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making processes as mayor when it comes to, I guess, budgeting and things like that? So how do you plan to get them involved?
Yep. So I would say if you go to the website, phillipjonesformayor.com, click on the priorities tab, it has everything listed. The big thing will always be communication and stakeholder engagement. So right now in Newport News, City Hall is all the way in the southeast, pretty much. All right, it's in Overtown. Well, if you live in Denby, it takes you 35 minutes to get down there. You can't really be involved. So number 1 is what we're going to do is we're going to have a sort of rotation. So when I went in November, boom, we're going to have, we'll keep City Hall in the south. That's fine. We're going to have, 1 month is going to be in Midtown. 1 month is going to be in Uptown. Then we'll go back down and do that. Number 2, when it comes to communication, is I'm going to have mayor office hours. So it's probably going to be Thursday, I think. But basically from 1 p.m. until 9 p.m., I'm going to be in my office. Whether it's just me or whether it's 100 people, you have anything, you come talk to me about it. You don't talk to my staff, you talk to me. 1 to 9 p.m., that's where I'll be.
Okay, perfect.
That's it.
And then we will ask one more.
Yeah.
So this is one of the ones where it's like you really don't have any control over this, but I'll just ask it just
I love it.
Just for S&Gs. They said, how does he feel about gun rights in America?
Yeah. So literally, mayor has no control over gun
Right.
rights. I'll say this. I think that we need to be mindful when we look at the future as our kids going to be safe. And that's more than just gun rights. That's in like, I want a future. I think we want a future where our kids feel safe in schools and they feel safe walking around. Whether you're in the inner city, the outer city, midtown, downtown, uptown, my answer is like, what is the best way to make our kids safe? And that's going to require a lot of thought. Those are usually at the national level, but I can say
Right.
like as mayor, I'm committed to ensuring that our kids are safe.
All right, cool. Well, that's perfect. So now, if you are to be elected mayor, you will be the youngest African American Newport News mayor in history.
That's
So
correct.
that's a pretty huge accolade.
It's a blessing.
Now, right, exactly. So with that being said, your other candidates are obviously older. So what kind of perspective can you bring?
Yeah. So I'll tell you this. I think that we really do need a fresh perspective to address some of the systematic things that have been going on in our city for far too long. And that can be their schools being accredited. That could be how downtown people don't feel, people feel marginalized. They don't feel like they're a part of the community. That could be lack of communication. That could be the lack of support for small businesses. All of these things have plagued our city for far too long. And under me, it stops.
Okay.
That's it.
Perfect. Yeah. No. Awesome. All right. Well, I feel great about that. You have my vote for sure. Like I said.
Appreciate
Yeah, we covered a lot, man. I mean, is there anything you want to add on a concluding note?
Yeah, I would just say one, thank you for the time and the space.
Absolutely.
I think like how you communicate to different people will always be what makes a great mayor. And I'll tell everyone, please feel free to check out the website. Ask me any questions. If you send us a Facebook message, LinkedIn, Twitter, you don't get my team. You get me. Because that's how it should be. Your leaders are elected. They serve the will of the people. And it's going to take all of us to make a stronger Newport News, a stronger Peninsula, and a stronger Hampton Roads. So thank you for the time.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find you at as far as social media is concerned?
Yep. If you go to Phillip Jones for Mayor, that is the Facebook, that is the Instagram, LinkedIn, Phillip Jones. We have a pretty prolific SEO. So you Google Phillip Jones with 2 L's, you're going to get me.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. All right. Well, once again, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for coming out and give me the stage to sit down and interview. And we'll wrap it up with that. So make sure y'all go ahead and support him. Make sure y'all follow him on all social media platforms. Make sure y'all go ahead and go down and vote November 8th. Okay, perfect. November 8th. Make sure y'all go vote for Phillip Jones. And that's all we got. Self-objection out. Appreciate y'all.